So I'm here today with my co-host on the Locker Room Philosophers podcast, Mike Dimitrieski. Good afternoon, Mike.
Yo, Carlos Taylor.
All right, so we just recorded an episode with Brandon Skull Wilson, and we kind of wanted to put something out before that episode comes out about kind of why we're doing this and what the genesis of the Locker Room Philosophers podcast was. So a little background. Mike and I trained together at Assembly Jiu-Jitsu. After classes, we would both end up just talking for a while, like an hour plus, just different members of the gym after class. And we just ended up having good conversations. A lot of those conversations would start out in the locker room. So I kind of came up with the name Locker Room Philosophers. And then we both had wanted to start a podcast for a while. So it kind of just worked out. So Mike, what's your thoughts? What are you excited to get into with the Locker Room Philosophers?
Yeah, to your point there, it's, the beautiful thing about the name, the Locker Room Philosophers, and how it correlates to, what we talk about in the locker rooms after training. The origin of the word philosophy is the lover of wisdom, and something about, post-training, the conversations that we have, talking to each other, figuring out, what wisdom we can get from the conversation, sometimes intentional, sometimes not. And, these conversations that we have, there's always something that comes up to where you can, whether it's us talking about jiu-jitsu, but then how does that translate to life, everyday life? What kind of challenges, difficulties, thoughts, what was going on in terms of my training, in terms of, your training. And then when we talk about these things, it's just like, man, there's so many great, golden nuggets of information there, and things that every time we leave training, it's the post-training too that really makes you a better person. And then I go home, generally I'll go and journal after training a little bit. So I'm always trying to remember some of these things, like, okay, Carlos mentioned this in his training, and I would take something away from what you said, that how it would apply to my training or even in life in general. So I love the name Locker Room Philosophers because it is the lover of wisdom, and there's, different avenues you can go with that, whether it's, dealing with like, the study of knowledge, the study of reality, the study of ethics and values, the study of correct reasoning. And all that applies to not only jiu-jitsu, but life too. And so I think that name suits perfectly for the conversations that are had in the locker room post-training.
I appreciate that, Mike, for sure. And that's why we get along so well, is that we both are trying to get the same things out of training and the same thing out of the conversations that we have post-training. This will come out before the Brandon episode, but what do people have to look forward to in the episode with Brandon? What did you learn from the conversation with him? What did you take out of it? I know you were over there furiously taking notes, so kind of give people a little teaser of what they can expect from our episode with the Jiu-Jitsu Drenger.
With the Jiu-Jitsu Drenger, there's a ton there that people will get out of the interview, and something that really stands out about Brandon, not only from experiencing it on the mats as an instructor and also as somebody that I trained with, is his dedication, his discipline, and you see it. It's like these little things that we always say, okay, discipline is so important, and then you see it. You see somebody actually live that and show you that they're disciplined. How important it is, what they get from it. So speaking from an athletic standpoint, from a jiu-jitsu standpoint, my time training with Brandon, just watching him train, show up to every class, multiple classes. I mean, I forgot the number of classes that he attended in my first year at jiu-jitsu, but I was just, the dedication that he put to his craft, that he wanted to, make primary part of his life, was just, to me, I'm like, this is exactly what needs to take place. It's like that. It's like the path to mastery, right? Like, you can't just become great at something or master something without putting in the time, putting in the hours, learning through failure, right? So failing forward and not letting that kind of, hold you back from your goal. And so for me, it was just really his discipline, dedication, and kind of, that's just something that even his structure of teaching shows that.
For sure. And then people kind of heard my background a little bit in the last probably 40 minutes of episode 0 with Zach Bunting. But give us a little bit of just kind of the wave tops from your background. I know that, you know, you're a real estate mogul, you're into property management, you're a broker, and then you also are obviously a martial artist. So give us the wave tops.
Yeah, so my background is right now I'm in real estate broker, full-time real estate. I have my own brokerage, which deals with traditional buying and selling of real estate, and then primarily focusing on rental investment properties and property management. That's more of my niche and the part of real estate that really interests me. That's why I got involved in real estate from the start. 2006 is when I got licensed. So that's the everyday thing. Real estate has always been the reason why I got into real estate from the investment side is just because of the search for financial freedom, for, you know, having investment properties, real estate properties, and, you know, in 2006, how appealing that looked to me, and I had some kind of picture of what I wanted to do. So that's kind of what led me to go down that route, and then it kind of quickly led into the recession we had in 2008. And so it wasn't the best time to be a newer agent at the time, but I also think that there was a huge blessing in that because I was able to fully, you know, kind of go full time during that time when deals weren't easy to come by. There was a lot of financial distress, which was it was unfortunate, sad, and then you had to, you know, work with a lot of, you know, I did a lot with short sales and foreclosures and having to go through that process. And then really trying to pivot and find out, okay, where are you going to take things in this market that basically was coming out of, you know, a false market with a lot of propped up values and, you know, bad loans. And so how does everything look? Is this somewhere I'm going to stay? And if I am going to stay in this industry, like what route do I need to go down to make it sustainable? You know, with real estate, that's what kind of like led me down multiple different, you know, avenues over the years to where it's like in the beginning, you know, I'm starting off as a general real estate agent, and then the recession hits, and then I kind of start pivoting to doing property preservation, doing bank-owned properties, doing broker price opinions, working with out-of-state investors, working a lot with Detroit proper, with things being so cheap and inexpensive there, and, you know, the whole world saying, oh, I can buy a house for essentially $1, just pay the back taxes at closing. Those were real, those were happening. There was actually a vacant lot in Hazel Park, bought the lot for $10, paid closing costs, which was basically back taxes and some title fees, and then flipped it and sold it. At the time, we should have kept them, but at the time, just flipped it to the neighbor for $3,000. And it's just like something so quick. I'm like, oh wow, just $10 vacant lot, and just knocked on the neighbor's door. Hey, do you want to buy the lot next to you so nobody builds? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. And we ended up just selling it for $3,000, which is wild. That's all it costed. But so real estate is that's been my job, my career since 2006. And then along with that, you know, training has been a big part of my life in general since I was 13 years old, in terms of like weightlifting, strength training, everything around that. And then that has also evolved since the beginning because of just age, injuries, interest. So it went from, you know, bodybuilding, powerlifting, some form of CrossFit before CrossFit in a way, like all these little things. It's evolved, but that's been a lot of like the grounding part of my life has been training. It's my safe haven. It's the place where I go and get my mind right. It's my, you know, my iron paradise. It's everything. It's where I meditate in a way. So that's been a big part of my life. And then with that as well, some form of martial art has been something that's been important to me. And that's been mainly the two drivers in that. You know, I've always been interested in martial arts as a little kid, just watching, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he was like one of the actors that I just loved every movie that he was in. Bruce Lee, obviously. Martial arts always showed me a lot more than just the ability to inflict damage, right? The physical aspects of it. It was more about the discipline and the mental part of it that's been the most interesting to me. I feel like all the masters in martial arts, everybody has this very stoic, this very Zen-like kind of mind. So at a young age, that was something that appealed to me as well, because, you know, growing up, I'm like, okay, well, I need confidence here. I need to be able to defend myself. And when I first started karate at a young age, that gave me both. But at the same time, it also showed me a lot of the weaknesses mentally because, I forgot the age that I started, but my first experience was karate. And then you're going to a competition, and then, you have all the people, the eyes on you, the kind of like the anxiety that goes with that. And then, okay, you fail at something. It's like your first thing failing in a competition, but it's not a team sport. It's just one-on-one, you and the opponent. And then how do you deal with that? Well, when I was as a kid, I didn't like that. So I was like, well, karate's not for me because it's not that cool. I want something different. But it was just me kind of, okay, I lost. That didn't work. I'm a young kid. Let me find something that's going to work, because it was the style, not me, right? So that kind of led me on this path of honestly, when I was young, it's more of like a nomad trainer in a way, like karate. Then I would try boxing and kickboxing then to try to figure out what made sense for me. And then, after a while, I got older and figured out what stuck with me, what I liked, because I'm starting to realize, okay, what I want to take out of this and what I'm trying to get out of it all. So that basically led me to Krav Maga, and I go to Krav Maga Detroit. Amazing school, great instructors. The owner, Pavel, is an amazing guy. So that was right when I signed up there. That was just like, this is the spot. It was honestly all because of the mindset and the why and everything related to that, which I felt at the time when it happened. I was like, okay, this school's the best. This makes sense. I feel comfortable here. And it took some contemplation type of thing to where I was like, okay, well, why is that? Like, why does this one feel the best? And outside of, obviously I was saying the instructors are amazing, all of them. Students are amazing, great environment, which is super important for that stuff. But a lot of it was the mindset about what I'm learning and why I'm learning it and why it's applied. And so that to me that's where like the juice is. With Krav Maga, shortly after Krav Maga, and, a little bit after Krav Maga, maybe 6-7 years is when I got to Jiu-Jitsu. So I've been there for a little bit over 2 years now. And then I cross-train. So I just do Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu, both full-time, every week, on top of my weight training, resistance training. So that's like a package program for me. So it's the Krav, the weight training, resistance training, and the Krav and the Jiu-Jitsu all go hand in hand to me and provide me with that, both the mental and physical.
That's awesome. How does a 40-year-old man like yourself recover and stay so active?
So there's a couple of things there. I think that one thing that is working to my advantage is the consistency of how I trained. So it's like, I'm not even exaggerating. So let's say I started lifting even in the basement, even if it's just very basic benching, right? So I started lifting at my neighbor's house when I grew up in Troy. I was 13 years old, and that's what got me hooked. And that was always like from a standpoint of like, okay, well, I'm a smaller kid, and I need to defend myself. I need to like put on get stronger, and give me that that confidence and that kind of like self-respect thing. So once I got hooked on lifting, and then Arnold and Rodney Coleman, and seeing all these legends, and then I was just like, oh, that's possible to make your body look like that. I think the consistency since I was 13 years old to now, and I'm saying consistent, it's looked different depending on the year and injury, all these things, but it's just been nonstop consistency every year, every month, every week, every day almost, right? It's 7 days. And now the thing is being, 40 years old, sometimes I think we overthink the way that somebody needs to move. So I think movement in general is key. So you have to move, your body, you have to be active. The recovery aspect of it is I abuse my body through physical things, right? Building it up stronger, but I'm also putting it through a lot of stress, a lot of abuse, right? Little injuries over the years. recovering through injuries, working through injuries, working around them, sometimes being stubborn and not allowing my body to heal, and then having that small injury turn into something more severe, which is obviously a problem. So I think the biggest thing now at 40 years old is the way I have to do it is you really have to manage, you have to be super aware of your body, and you have to manage both the physical output and going hard and sweating and approaching it that way, but then also taking a step back and saying, okay, what does my body need right now? So I might need to meditate to regulate my mind, get my mind right, have my intention right. I might need to work on some mobility, some stretching, cold plunging. There's going to be some anti-inflammatory things that get mixed in there, right? So turmeric, right? That's a very good one. Supplementing with vitamins is super important. So I do take, vitamin D, zinc every day. The stretching and mobility, like I said, is also important. But strength training, I think, really helps with the injuries and really helps with the grappling because, having that foundation and then obviously still strength training keeps your body resilient to the punishment that you put it through as well. Yeah, but recovery really is, you just have to be mindful and you have to know your body. So like what one person does for recovery or how one person trains with or through an injury, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work the same for you. And then also at the same time, though, I feel like some people tend to baby themselves a little bit and, their body, and even if they're feeling a little sore or something is a little tweaked, I think that moving and still not being sedentary while you're recovering is super important. But then that training doesn't necessarily have to be all out 100%. Because one of the things was with jiu-jitsu, like what I had to learn in the beginning, I didn't learn this right away. And then that would lead to a little bit more injuries, a little bit, things like my body just kind of being sore and broken down a little bit more is learning, how to manage your rolls, right? So you're sparring, like sometimes you're going 100%. Sometimes you might scale it down, to 50%, and not having that all-out hard roll every single time is very, in my opinion, very important with recovering too.
That's something we kind of covered with Brandon in our interview with him, which again is going to be coming out here in a couple of days after this is released, is that jiu-jitsu, which people are probably going to get sick of us talking about because some people listen to this don't train. A lot of what you learn in jiu-jitsu translates to life. For example, Mike was just talking about in terms of knowing your body and knowing what you need at that time. So whether it's resting, whether your body's good to go and you can get those hard rolls in, or if you need to take a step back, get some lighter rolls in that day, let your body kind of recover, but you're still moving. And I think that doing that consistently is the key. As Mike said, he's been active now, working out every day, or at least moving his body every day for 27 years. He talks all the time about rucking, and that's something that I'm going to start incorporating because it's something where you get the body moving. You're just walking around with a backpack that has weight in it, but you're getting the body moving. You're not, beating up all your joints too bad. And it's something where it's steady state. You get the cardio up, but you're moving your body. You're just adding a little bit more resistance to it. So I think that, again, that translates well. The lesson from jiu-jitsu translates well into that.
Yeah, and that's something, rucking is something where even when people are trying to find time to do all these things, like for me, like rucking was, when I was first kind of introduced to like the whole rucking thing, knowing its origins, but like introduced to like, okay, I can use this as a workout or as like an everyday thing. That's something that like, there can be no excuses in terms of time. You can manage that and everything. Okay, for me, I have 2 dogs. So every time I take my dogs out for a walk, I put the rucksack on, you put 40 pounds on. You can scale it up and put heavier weight if you want more of a challenge. Obviously, you can go lower weight if you need less, but you just put the backpack on, you put the rucksack on, and you go for your walk. And then you make it fun. You just walk, which is perfectly fine and great, and you're getting a lot of benefits there from your core, your legs, your ankles, your feet, your your back, your upper back and shoulders. A lot of great things. Your traps get a nice workout. And so with that, it's just like take the backpack and go for a walk, which walking should be at the very minimal. Like the very least, you should be walking every day. You don't have to run. You don't have to run a marathon, half marathon. You don't even have to go to the gym if you can just walk, just move. So for rucking, I was like, okay, This is great. Let me mix that in to my everyday thing. It's going to help improve in these areas. And then also, it's something that I find rucking to be very meditative because it really, you can't, like your mind's not going to wander too far, especially if you're honest with your rucking because you're going to have some weight in there. And then if you're, 1, 2, 3 miles or more into it, depending on the weight too, you start to really feel it and you start to embrace the suck, as Brandon said. And then that kind of builds on, because in your mind you're like, oh, I want to quit. But then you're 4 miles away from home with this 40, 50-pound backpack. You can't just like take it off and stop. So it's very nice because it keeps you present to what's going on.
For sure. We've got to wrap this section up a little bit. We've been kind of serious up to this point. Now we got to ask kind of a timeless question that might end up being a segment on here. Which war would you rather be in? Would you rather be in the Vietnam War, the Revolutionary War, or the medieval time period?
So when I talked to you off air about this, Revolutionary War is the pick, but so I've like the medieval war is the one that always to me is like something that I'm always like that would be the baddest thing to be a part of. At the same time, by far probably one of the most intimidating. When you're just lining up with hundreds or thousands of soldiers front line and shields and swords, and then the chaos that ensues, and then the armor kind of looks similar, and then you just there's just chaos all around. You're probably like how many people probably got stabbed by their own military, right? I mean, like their own guys. It's just so I feel like that one would be a little too chaotic. But
that's true. That's not something that we covered when I was discussing this with Bunting. Yeah, obviously you have a lot to process between the engaging in some swordsmanship, hand-to-hand fighting, and then
stepping over bodies.
Yeah, stepping over bodies. Yeah, what if you trip and then the other dude now has the advantage? And then also you've got the cavalry coming in on horseback. You've got arrows flying everywhere. But yeah, what's the odds you get stabbed by your own guy?
I feel like not only just the arrow. This might be like a Zach thing, but I don't know if I don't know if they necessarily invented it. But was the crossbow? Did that come out of France?
I'm not sure where it came out of, but
because I feel like that was a game changer during those times of war too. Because like the crossbow was so fast and distance wise and power.
Yeah,
it was interesting to see. Like some of these like historic movies and stuff that are kind of based around history, and obviously there's some that's not as accurate because it's for TV as well. But I feel like the crossbow was like huge in terms of like changing the way that some of these, like how do you scale a wall to raid like a castle, and then all of a sudden these guys got crossbows that are just firing so much quicker, faster, more distance than the traditional archer.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that in terms of using the crossbow for scaling the wall, because you see, the old images and stuff of them launching the things with the hooks on them and then kind of rappelling. Well, is it the reverse of rappelling up the wall? Yeah, that's interesting. But it's obviously a timeless weapon because people still use them to hunt. In summary,
Revolutionary War.
He didn't even mention the Vietnam War. Like, the Vietnam War is just obviously the wrong choice. So for all you people on my poll the other day who said Vietnam War, including my previous guest, Zach Bunting, that's simply the wrong answer. Do you have any closing thoughts, anything from the Daily Stoic book?
Let's see. Actually, I do.
Mike is an avid reader of The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. I subscribe to their emails, so I get those every day, but honestly, I've not been taking it in like I should, so I need this segment as much as anybody else.
So this one, The Daily Stoic is a beautiful book because it lays out each day, has some new Stoic wisdom that he posts in here, he writes in here, and then you get to read it and contemplate it and sit here and see how it applies. So this one on November 7th is going to be the How to Be Powerful. So this is from Epictetus, and it says, "Don't trust in your reputation, money, or position, but in the strength that is yours, namely, your judgments about the things that you control and don't control. For this alone is what makes us free and unfettered, that picks us up by the neck from the depths and lifts us eye to eye with the rich and the powerful." So that is the quote from Epictetus. This quote kind of takes it back to saying, it reminds you to focus on the inward, on acquiring power rather than outward, right? So it's the inward power rather than the outward power. Another thing that they'll say, there's like a quote from a former slave back in those days that they have here. It's like, would you have a great empire? That's a question. And the answer is rule over yourself, because, that's one of those things where so Epictetus was a slave. Think about Viktor Frankl, right, being in the concentration camp, and then their mental attitudes during these times and how they were able to basically find the power within them internally rather than outside trying to have this anger, hold on to all these emotions that don't serve them inwardly. That's a great reminder to always focus on being powerful internally and figuring out your own thoughts, sitting with them, and just being a witness on what's going on internally.
There we go. We've got our daily dose of Mike Dimitrievsky wisdom. For all you locker room philosophers out there, we're going to wrap this up by reminding you to be powerful and find that power within yourself, and you'll truly be powerful as long as you can get that from within and don't be looking to outside sources for your inner power. Have a good one.